Welcome to another episode of Bowcast. This is the archery podcast with the new school archer in mind. Bowcast covers everything from tips, techniques, and archery technology that will help raise your success in the field. And now, here is your host, covering the straight shot, Carrie Zilka.
Welcome to the Bowcast podcast. Today, we are talking to the real Dave Cousins. I love that your Facebook page says the real Dave Cousins. I love that.
Yeah, it just happened that way. It was one of those things I probably should have started an athlete page before a personal page, and there was kind of no going back, so stuck with it.
Right. Dave is a professional archer. He is an amazing bow hunter. He is a very prolific figure in the archery and bow hunting world, and we are going to be talking about just kind of how to stay sane and how to stay in shape and keep sharp, because just because we're all on the pandemic lockdown right now doesn't mean we can get lazy, right?
Absolutely not. And archery, where it's really a self-sport, it's the perfect thing to do when there's nothing else to do.
Exactly. So why don't you give the listeners a little bit of a rundown on who you are and why we should pay attention to the next 20 minutes or so?
Well, for the last 25 years, I've been a full-time professional archer. I'm 43 years old. Essentially, the day I graduated high school, I signed my first pro contract, and I haven't looked back. I've been fortunate enough to be a member of the United States archery team for nearly that entire time. I've 17 world archery gold medals. I've shot over 30 world records in my time. I've won the Vegas shoot 3 times. I've been active in all disciplines of competitive archery, and I've also traveled the world and bow hunted in quite a few destinations as well as just being an outdoorsman and an outdoors person my entire life, with hunting, fishing, whatever it is, just in the woods and water. So it's been my lifelong passion, and somehow I was able to maintain the drive and find the outlets to make it a career.
That is awesome. Living the dream.
That's what they say. But with anything, if you make your passion your livelihood, they say it's really not work. But in order to be successful, there are days when
work.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. But the rewards are really so much sweeter when you're completely involved in something that's your own, rather than punching the clock for someone else. Yeah.
Agreed. So what do you do? So sometimes when you're not, traveling the world, winning world championships, I'm assuming you have maybe a training routine or a practice routine to stay sharp with the archery. Can you give us a rundown on that?
Yeah. Normally it all circles around, and it's all focused around tournaments and what events I have coming up. Well, unfortunately, right now that's just not the case. So traveling internationally or nationally to large scale events just isn't happening. Nearly everything has been postponed or canceled or put on the back burner. So that has definitely affected the training schedule and regime. So really right now I'm just back to nearly just backyard archery like everybody else, just trying to stay sharp and trying to be motivated and tinkering with new equipment and stuff. You have to remember fall in the outdoor industry is literally right around the corner. Even though now this is April, new products usually always start launching in October or so. So on the engineering and product testing and development side, we're working on new products, as we speak. We have to carry on as business as usual. So I keep myself consumed with that type of thing, with testing and product development and so forth. But really just a lot of just backyard archery. I mean, here in my home, I'm lucky enough to have my own full archery shop, full 20-yard indoor range and everything around the property. I live in a rural area, so getting outside to shoot some arrows, shoot some 3D targets, shoot my 100-yard lane is not an issue. It's not like I'm cooped up in the city or anything like that. So I just try to stay active and try to stay on my discipline, because archery is a craft, and if you don't stay proficient in it, it's a skill that decays.
Yes.
Just like every hunter knows as fall comes, I wish they were shooting their bow all year, but a lot of people just don't have the opportunity or time due to other requirements. They dust the bow off maybe a month before hunting season and they get to it. And they know that, geez, a little more practice would have been better. So that's kind of the mindset I try to stay in. I just stay proficient, stay sharp. It is a tangible skill that decays over time. And if you love to shoot and you love to be in the outdoors, it's not really an effort anyway. It's something you want to do. So.
Right. So say somebody lives in a suburb and they have a little bit of yard in the backyard. Say they can only shoot up to 20 yards. Would you suggest that they set up a target and even do the 5, 10, 15, 20 yards? Or would you is it more muscle memory that you would recommend?
I'll tell you something that's actually going on right now, and it's a partnership with World Archery, is on World Archery's social media page, there's a group that actually has started on the behalf of World Archery, a short distance, online league. And every week they're posting a different target face PDF, which you can download and print, that is scaled to your distance. And they're kind of having fun with it. They've got compounds, they've got recurves, they've got bare bows, and people are shooting as close as 5 yards away, all the way up to 20 yards, depending on how much distance you get. Some people are not even fortunate enough to be able to get outside, whether they live in a very urban area or, you live in an apartment or whatever. There are people actually practicing and shooting archery and competing for fun and growing their skill at very short range. And it's through that resource that World Archery has launched on their Facebook page. And there's some really good things you can do there. But the biggest thing is going to be trying to stay in touch with what you see in your sight picture and how you engage your shot. That's the craft of it. That being calm and stable and still being able to make a good shot. That's what makes you an archer. And anytime you can dedicate to that, especially, I think a lot about bow hunting, so much in bow hunting, you set your stand or your blind up and I got a trail coming here. And if the buck comes this way, I've got a shot here. And if I don't get that shot, then maybe I've got one here. And if the wind changes, then I know maybe my stand location needs to change. So you spend a lot of that time going through what that opportunity might look like if you get a chance to take a shot and harvest an animal. Well, practicing archery in your yard, in your living room, your garage, your apartment really should be no different. Every single arrow really should be approached with full intent of the process of what are the 3 or 4 key things I need to do to make a good shot and give this arrow the best chance to find its mark. So it's really no different. There's a lot of crossover and similarity there.
Interesting. Can I ask you, so sometimes when I draw and I set that pin on the target, sometimes it wavers a little bit. Do you have a tip for those of us who aren't super steady? Our arms just aren't super steady.
Sure. Well, the first thing to remember is that no one holds dead steady. Even at the top level of competitors, we don't hold dead steady. We definitely have less movement. And how we've achieved that is, number one, knowing in our mind what our sight can look like at its worst and still achieve where we want to hit, a 10 or an X or the kill zone on a 3D target or whatever. Knowing that you're going to have movement, knowing that the spot you want to hit is an area, not one defined little pixel. So first of all, knowing that the 10 ring on a 3D target or on a Vegas face is an area, and that anywhere in that area, your arrow scores the higher value. Right away, that should be the first step to giving your mind permission to allow the bow to float and to move a little bit, because the sight pin's always going to be moving back in and around towards that area. It's kind of like the driving analogy or tying your shoes or, fork and knife on a plate, cutting something, bringing it to your mouth. These are movements that just kind of happen. You don't put a lot of thought into it. You know the destination, you know the process. You're driving down the road. You have the yellow line on the left, you got the white line and mailboxes on the right, and your eye and hand keep the vehicle in your lane. You don't actively try to steer it and force it within your lane. Same thing with aiming a bow. If you start each shot with what your sight picture can look like at its best and worst and still stay in and around the target area, and then you think about what are the 3 or 4 key physical things that I need to do to stay strong during the shot, stay engaged in the sight movement, and execute a good shot to get this arrow as close to the middle as possible. And if you kind of lay those steps out as a roadmap before you ever draw your bow back, you'll start to notice that as soon as you let go of the physical control of holding the bow as steady as you can, it starts to get steadier. And also your shot timing and routine becomes a little bit more consistent. You don't have shots that go off crazy fast. You don't have shots that seem to take forever. Things start to get a little more streamlined, and then you notice a natural rhythm or cadence to your shot routine. And that kind of becomes the ticker that keeps you on your pace.
Interesting. I had read, this was many, many years ago. I forget if it was, I'm assuming it was North Korea or one of the Korean countries during the Olympics, that one of their professional archers said that she always made the infinity symbol to keep it real steady. And I always thought that was interesting. And I guess I've always just tried to hold it as steady as possible, which usually backfires on me.
Yeah, it usually does. And with that analogy, talking about South Korean recurve team, that's a very good analogy for what your sight picture looks like, because your eye is always going to be driving your sight back to the middle. And it's going to be that subconscious level of correction and recorrection and steering that's going to cause the float and cause the movement. And your eye really likes to align objects. Like if you were to you're sitting in your office right now or wherever, and you were to just point at something on the wall, you literally look at it, you raise your arm, you extend your finger, and it just goes to it. You don't have to think about these minor muscle movements like up, up, down, down, left, up, down. Nope, right there it is. I'm pointing at that outlet. You just look, and your body and your mind and your eye all go there. Aiming a bow is really no different. And in all shooting sports, the active aiming, whether it's rifle, pistol, shotgun, whatever it is, it's literally the same process, except with archery, we're more exposed to it because we have this thing we're holding back at full draw. We have this bow we're holding up. We have all this stuff in front of us, and our senses are kind of overloaded, whereas our senses aren't as heavily burdened when we do any other shooting sports, shotgun, rifle, pistol. It's a little different physical application than it is with archery, but the principles are all very the same.
Interesting. Is that why a lot of these targets have 5 smaller targets rather than just one? I feel like sometimes I get like an eye fatigue or something if I stare at the same exact one over and over and over again, or try to shoot the same one, not to mention Robin Hoods, which suck, but
a lot of people think Robin Hoods are great until it becomes problematic.
Until you're starting to buy your own arrows, then it's not so funny.
I want to see one post on social media where somebody shoots a Robin Hood that's actually in the X.
Right.
Have you noticed that?
That's true.
It's like arrows scattered all over the place, and you have a Robin Hood out in the middle of the 4-ring. Good job, I guess. No, did the same thing wrong twice. I'll probably get flamed for that, but it's a thing. You'll notice it going forward. You'll never unsee it now.
Right.
But the thing with a one-spot target face, it's really one of the easiest things to learn how to aim on. And when I start with new archers or archers that are seasoned but struggling a little bit, when I'm working with coaching them or trying to share some ideas about the mental aspects of it, I'll go to a one-spot target face because there's just less visual input. And with the multi-spot target faces, it's really, once you get a lot more advanced, and you want that clean, crisp target on every single, shot. And also we need it to preserve the integrity of scoring when we're shooting large diameter arrows at these indoor targets. We really need a fresh target face for every arrow to be able to score it well, and obviously not stave up arrows. But sometimes the multi-spot can be a little bit frazzling sometimes to the average archer. There's just, the target feels like it's smaller, it looks like it's smaller, and it just overloads with a bit of anxiety. It makes things a little more challenging sometimes.
So what I'm hearing is, especially if you're refreshing or just starting out, or like I said, you just haven't picked up your bow all winter because it's -4 degrees in Wisconsin and you don't have access to an indoor archery range. Put a single target out there, focus on that for a while, get good at that one, and then maybe after that branch off rather than stressing yourself out.
Yeah, and also, too, just to reiterate, shoot every arrow with a plan. You know, just like it was that one shot of a lifetime at a huge buck that you've been patterning and chasing all season. You know, shoot every arrow with the fullest intent of, what do I want to do with this arrow? What are the steps I need to take to make sure I do that? And then commit to the process and do it. And after every arrow you shoot, ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, what did I do well during that shot? Because even during the worst shots, there's going to be something in there you did well. You need to reward and praise yourself on that one thing or several things that you did well. That will help build a more positive self-image, greater self-esteem, and also give you the belief that I can do this. Yes, I'm a little rough around the edges, but there are some things I got a good grasp on. So it's praise. And then secondly, ask yourself, sorry, go ahead.
Just, do you mean like, so even though you make kind of a shitty shot, you're like, oh, but my anchor point was great, my hips were perfect,
right.
Or, okay.
Yeah, there's something in there you did well. You know, and so that tells you what you've got nailed down so that you can move on to other stuff. And then the next question is, what will I do better during the next shot? So the first one is praise, and the second one is goal setting. You know, you're like, hey, I got my anchor right, my weight distribution from my hips, my form was good, my peep and scope were centered. Okay, I did those things well. Well, my execution was a little rough. I didn't, maybe my bow hand could be in the bow a little bit better. I could be a little stronger on my aim. So that's goal setting, what you'll focus on doing better the next shot. So, you know, what did I do well? What will I do better? Those 2 things can kind of guide you as to, you know, how you need to approach the next shot. And there's no more important time than in practice, in the backyard, in your garage, in your living room, to build that process so that when you do get that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity on a hunt or in a tournament or at a local 3D or a league or something, that now you're ready. You've been in that moment. You know what you need to do to give yourself the best chance at a positive outcome.
Awesome. Very cool. Now I'm itching to get out there. I don't have time today, but I'm going to want to on my lunch hour.
Right? I know. It gets me a little pumped up too. I'm not going to lie. Yep.
What other tips would you give people who are stuck at home, just flinging some arrows in the backyard? How many arrows do you think they should shoot? I mean, because I don't know. I know there's the whole muscle memory versus fatiguing your muscles and then starting to shoot like crap. You know, those 2 sides of the coin. What would you suggest as far as how many arrows they should shoot in a day just to stay sharp?
Well, the actual quantity is going to vary for everybody, depending on their mental capabilities and also their physical capabilities. There's sometimes here at home, even during the peak of season, I might only shoot 60 arrows or 120 arrows in a day. And then there's other days where I'll shoot 500, you know, just because I'm not getting it right, or it's just that good I don't want to stop. Yeah. But on the days where I shoot very few arrows, sometimes that's 60, you know, 1 round or 30, a half a round, it's because I shot every one of them with perfect intent. I was disciplined enough to visualize what I wanted to accomplish, to visualize the steps I needed to go through to give that arrow the best chance to be where I wanted it to be, and then was 100% committed to that process on every single arrow. And those days are really rare, but when I can go through all those steps and really be honest with myself and committed to it, it is the most rewarding 30 arrows I can shoot. It's taxing, it's mentally and physically exhausting, but it is just so rewarding. So that would be my advice is, how many ever number of arrows you can shoot and shoot them well, like well-composed shots.
And I would assume that, because you said 60 to 500, and I about fell out of my chair. I'm like, even thinking about that, and my arms are falling off. So I'm assuming that if you start out, say, with 25, and then the next day you do 30, or whatever it is, you will gradually increase as you get stronger.
Yeah, I mean, the more you shoot, the better you're going to shoot, to a point. When you start breaking down and you start losing proper form, then you need to walk away and take a break.
Okay, that's when you know it's time to stop.
Yeah, when it feels like, and another thing too, and I talk about this in my seminars and when I coach people, the number one reason we all got into shooting a bow is because it's fun.
Yeah.
When it stops being fun, pull back and ask yourself a few questions and look at, why have I taken this to a point where I'm not reaping the enjoyment that I so got when I started this? Have I set my expectations and goals way too lofty for what I have the time and ability and resources for? I talk to a lot of people who are convinced they're going to be the next world champion or next Olympic champion. Those slices of the pie are really thin. You're talking about less than 1/100% of the population is ever going to be in a position to win a medal on a world stage or Olympic stage, even rarer. Not everybody's going to be in that position. Think about why you got into shooting a bow to begin with. It's fun.
Yeah. So
apply as much mental and physical energy that you have to still keep it the sport that you love and not make it a burden or a source of frustration.
Perfect. That is just like a great bookmark to this whole conversation. That's perfect.
Well, I've been doing this a while, so.
Right. Well, and that's why I thought you'd be a great interview for the first couple of episodes of the Bowcast relaunch. I was like, who were some of the originals who, were on some of the original episodes, and then who are people I really respect and who I know will be...
Get the OGs out.
Oh, yeah. We've got a couple of them coming, and it's just perfect. Well, cool. Well, Dave, why don't you tell the listeners where they can find out more about you and how they can follow along or attend some of your seminars, like you said, or what you're up to?
Yeah. Right now, you can follow all my exploits on social media at my Facebook athlete page, the Real Dave Cousins. And, of course, you can always keep up with my sponsors' social pages, PSC Archery, Shibuya, First Strings, Hamsky Arrowrest, Carter Enterprises, Carter Releases and stuff. All those fun companies. You can find all that info on my social pages. And that's kind of where I'll be, doing some updates here and there, some little tech videos and stuff, and just sharing a little peer into my lifestyle. What I do, I'm a avid bass fisherman, bass angler, and tournament angler. Unfortunately, no tournaments coming up this season right away due to all the government guidelines. But I just recently acquired my Maine guides license. So when we can recongregate and people can start traveling back up here to vacation and whatnot, I'll be making my services available for guide trips for smallmouth and largemouth bass here in the Maine area. So that's kind of another chapter. The next chapter in what I do in the outdoors is spending a lot of time in the woods and waters again and doing some guiding. So
very cool. Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and walk us through some of these tips and get in depth with it.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you guys and your listeners and all, and look forward to the next time. Thank you.